Alright, in this video we're going to explore what's the range of this function, this trigonometric function. But to do that we're basically going to look at the graph. So think about it, guys. What is the what's happening here? Okay, what's the period of this function? Remember when we used to talk about this? What's the amplitude? You know what I mean? Let's do a little graph. Alright? There is no phase shift, so we don't need to worry about that. But, for example, the period. We know that the period is always 2 pi divided by the b value. Alright? The b value is anything that's in here right in front of the angle. So there is no b value other than 1. So the period is just going to be 2 pi. So let's just do a little sketch. Okay, so look guys, the period is 2 pi. So you know that means this is going to be pi. This is pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2. Now, what about the amplitude? The amplitude is all about this number right here in the front. Alright, it's always positive, so the amplitude is going to be 3. Now, before we going up 3 and down 3, because that's what the amplitude does, we need to think about the midline. Midline. Because the amplitude goes up and down from the midline. Well, the midline is going to be given by this number here on the end, because this is a vertical shift down 2. So that's why the midline is going to be this horizontal line y equals -2. So if I go -1, -2, alright, my midline is actually going to be down here, isn't it? Govna. Alright, so here's my midline down here. So look, this is the sine function, and the sine function always starts off right on the midline. Alright, if it's got a positive leading coefficient, it starts off going up. So and of course by the time it gets back to 2 pi, it's going to start over again, so it better be back to the midline. So I'm thinking amplitude now. So starting here on the midline, I'm going to go up 3. So by the time I get to this position, I should be 1 up. Maybe I should put a mark up there. Okay, at 1. So this is like -1, -2. So this is +1. Okay, you know what? I guess I'll need some marks down here as well, because this will be -3, -4, -5. Okay, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Anyway, back to business. So I went up 3 and then back to the midline. Then I'm going to go down 3 and then back to the midline. So the graph is looking like this. Here's one period of this function. Alright, it will continue like that, up and down forever. But this is going to be the highest point hit, and this is going to be the lowest point hit. So that's why the range, which is what we are really here for, okay, the range is going to go from a low of -5, alright, to a high of 1. Alright, so that's the range, -5 to 1. Okay, don't be thrown if you see this given as an inequality, where they say something like -5 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 1. Alright, this is another way of saying the range. Okay, let's look at another graph. Understand this +2 that's here on the front, we're used to seeing it on the end, so I'm just going to move it. So let's talk about the period. All right, the period is 2 pi divided by the b value. The b value is this 4 right here. Okay, that's what's meant by the b value. So that's why the period is going to be 2 pi divided by this 4. And 2 goes into 4 twice, so that's why the period is going to be pi over 2. Okay, so period pi over 2. What else do they want? The amplitude. Okay, amplitude is always simple. Amplitude is always positive. It'll be this number here in the front. But even if this were -3, we'd still say the amplitude is +3. Okay, amplitude period. What about the vertical shift? Sometimes we call that the midline. We have a vertical shift that's up 2. So vertical shift is up 2. All right. Sometimes you're asked for the midline, and we'd say y equals 2. Now, they did not ask us for a phase shift, but there isn't one anyway. All right. There will be a phase shift when there's something extra happening, like inside of parentheses or something. Okay, so that's it. Amplitude, period, and vertical shift.